So this all began when I was 23 years old. I've always considered myself a child-free person, and for anyone who doesn't understand what that means, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. I have no desire to have children, raise children, or even deal with children on a regular basis. I don't hate them, I don't think there's anything wrong with people who have them, but it's just not for me. I'm living my life the way I want to. And having kids simply doesn't fit into that. It's not even a maybe thing. I know that this isn't what I want. It wasn't something that just popped up overnight either. Ever since I was young, I never had that desire that other people seem to have. That instinct to play with babies, to imagine myself as a mother one day, none of that was ever there for me. I've always been the one to focus on my career, my friends, my hobbies, and yes, enjoying my own freedom. And honestly, it's been great. My life has been exactly what I've made of it, and I've always been upfront with people about how I feel about children. It's not something I shy away from. I simply don't see the appeal, and I definitely don't think there's any reason for me to babysit anyone else's child. But of course, that's not how life works, is it? As a woman, there's always this expectation that you'll eventually get the maternal instinct, that one day you'll want to have kids, or at least help out with the ones around you. It's like there's this unspoken rule that once you reach a certain age, you're expected to just be good with kids, regardless of your preferences or desires. And to top it all off, once you're the youngest person in your family with no kids, guess what? You're the go-to babysitter. That's exactly what happened to me. My sister Sarah, who's 30 years old, has a 4-year-old son, Tommy. Tommy's a little, well, let's just say that he's not your typical 4-year-old. And by that, I mean he's an absolute handful. But here's the thing, it's not really his fault. He's got some pretty intense behavioral issues, and it's obvious that something's going on. But Sarah, my sister, well, she doesn't see it that way. You see, Sarah refuses to admit that Tommy has any real issues. She doesn't want to deal with the reality of what's going on with him, so instead of addressing it, she just ignores it. And because of that, Tommy's behavior has gotten progressively worse. The kid screams bloody murder when something doesn't go his way. I'm talking about full-on tantrums that seem to come out of nowhere. He'll start crying if his socks aren't on exactly right, if the sound of the TV is too loud, or if something doesn't feel right to him. And these aren't just little whines. They're full-blown meltdowns that can last for what feels like forever. And this happens all the time. It's not just an occasional thing either. It happens multiple times a day. Tommy has trouble handling simple things like changes in routine or being told no. He gets so upset, it's honestly heartbreaking to watch. It's clear to me that he's dealing with something deeper, but Sarah doesn't see it. She refuses to take him to see a specialist, refuses to have him evaluated. Instead, she just calls him overdramatic or spoiled. And every time I bring it up, she brushes it off. So, naturally, I'm stuck in a position where I'm expected to babysit Tommy. But here's the thing, I can't do it. I've tried a few times before, and every single time it's been a disaster. I can't handle the screaming, the tantrums, the chaos. It's exhausting. I don't mind spending time with kids who are well-behaved, but Tommy isn't that. And every time Sarah asks me to babysit, I just feel like I'm being asked to deal with a level of stress that I'm not willing to take on. This isn't to say that I don't love Tommy. I do. He's my nephew. But I also have my limits. I have my own life, my own job, my own responsibilities, and being forced into babysitting a kid who is constantly out of control, that's not something I signed up for. So every time Sarah asks, I refuse. I've been saying no for months, and every single time it turns into a huge fight. She doesn't get it. She doesn't understand why I don't want to help out. She sees it as me rejecting my family, as me being selfish, as me not doing my duty as an aunt. And let me tell you, it's frustrating. The guilt trips, the emotional manipulation, every time I say no, she makes me feel like the worst person in the world. But things really hit a breaking point when I started babysitting for my friends, James and Emily. They're both 23, and they've got a 1-year-old son who is completely the opposite of Tommy. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and happy. He's a joy to babysit. He's easygoing, he doesn't throw tantrums, and I honestly love spending time with him. They asked me to babysit, and I said yes. And you know what? I was happy to help them out. I really enjoy spending time with their kid. It's not stressful for me. When I agreed to babysit, they asked me politely, which is a huge difference from Sarah. They didn't guilt trip me or act like it was my responsibility because I didn't have kids. They just asked, and I said yes. Simple as that. That's how things should be, right? You ask politely, you respect the other person's time, and they'll help if they can. But then that same weekend, Sarah calls me again. And guess what she wants? You guessed it. She wants me to babysit Tommy. Again. Same story as always. She wants a break, and she thinks it's just normal for me to drop everything and help her out. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I told her I was already babysitting for my friends, and I couldn't do both. And you know what happened next? She flipped out. I mean, she completely lost it. She started calling me names, saying I was a bad sister, saying I didn't care about my family. She told me I'd rather babysit someone else's kid than my own nephew. She said, "You're the one who doesn't want kids, and yet you're babysitting for them? What kind of sister does that?" And at that point, I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. Sarah didn't just get upset and let it go. She didn't drop it. Instead, she showed up at my house. And I mean, she really showed up. She started banging on my door like a crazy person, demanding that I babysit Tommy. I wasn't even home at the time. I had gone to my friend's house to get some space because I knew this was going to happen. But Sarah didn't care. She came with Tommy, knocking on my door like she was going to force me to take him. I was livid. So I called her out. Through the window, I told her to leave. I told her that if she didn't, I'd call the cops. And she didn't stop. She stood there, screaming at me. She called me heartless, a baby hater, all kinds of things. She was completely out of control. And here I was, holding my friend's kid, watching all of this unfold. It was surreal. Eventually, she left. But it didn't end there. I had everything on my doorbell camera. So, I did what I thought was right. I sent the video to the family group chat. I thought maybe this would finally show everyone that I wasn't being unreasonable. But, of course, my family sided with Sarah. They took her side, telling me I was wrong for not helping out. They said family helps family, like it was that simple. They didn't care that I had tried to explain why I didn't want to babysit. It was like none of them understood what I was going through. They didn't get how hard it was for me to deal with Tommy's behavior, and they definitely didn't get how Sarah refused to acknowledge it. They just saw it as me being selfish, and that's where the problem lies. I wasn't being selfish. I was trying to protect my own sanity, but it didn't stop there. Oh no. Sarah kept texting me, trying to provoke me even more, and that's when things really went south. She started saying some pretty awful things about my friend's wife, Emily. You know, the one I was babysitting for? Emily's a wonderful person, but for some reason, Sarah had this bizarre hatred for her. She started saying that Emily shouldn't have had kids, that she should have been sterilized. I was disgusted. My blood was boiling. I've tried to stand up for Emily before, but now it was personal. Now Sarah wasn't just attacking me. She was attacking someone I care about, someone who's been nothing but kind to me. And that was the final straw. It was at this point that I realized I couldn't let Sarah's behavior slide any longer. Her complete refusal to acknowledge Tommy's issues was one thing, but now it was getting personal. Not only was she pushing me to take on a responsibility I didn't want, but she was attacking my friends and showing no remorse for how her actions were affecting me. I knew something had to change. At first, I just kept my distance. I tried to avoid her and stop the constant barrage of texts she was sending me, but the messages kept coming. She would send a few angry ones, then a few hours later send apologetic texts saying she was just frustrated. It was like a cycle of manipulation, and honestly, I wasn't having it anymore. I knew I had to set some serious boundaries with her, or I'd keep getting dragged into this mess. I tried to talk to my family about it. I thought maybe if I explained how I was feeling, they would understand. I told them that I wasn't refusing to help because I hated Tommy. I loved him. Of course I did. He was my nephew. But dealing with him was too much for me, especially when his mother wasn't helping him and wasn't open to getting him the help he needed. But once again, my family just didn't get it. They saw it as me being unreasonable, selfish, and uncaring. My parents, in particular, didn't want to upset Sarah. They tried to keep the peace, even if it meant ignoring the bigger issue at hand. They were older, and I get it. They didn't want to be the ones to rock the boat. But I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I was exhausted. The constant pressure to be the good sister who would help with Tommy, despite everything that was going on, was suffocating. I needed them to understand that I wasn't being a bad person. I was just trying to protect myself. And then there was the constant guilt tripping. Sarah kept reminding me that family helps family. Like that was the answer to everything. She would text me things like, "I can't believe you won't help out your sister. You're supposed to be there for me. What kind of sister are you?" It made me feel like the world was crumbling around me. The constant barrage of messages and guilt was wearing me down, but I had to remind myself that I wasn't the one in the wrong here. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own mental health to keep Sarah happy. One night, after another one of Sarah's guilt-filled texts, I snapped. I sent her a long message. I told her that I loved her, but I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep being dragged into her issues with Tommy, especially when she wasn't even trying to address the real problem. I told her I understood that being a mom was hard, but that didn't mean I should have to sacrifice my time and energy for a situation that wasn't even being handled properly. And you know what? She didn't take it well. Of course, she didn't. She shot back with an even nastier text. She accused me of being cold-hearted and selfish. She told me that I didn't care about her or Tommy, and that I was just trying to avoid responsibility. She even went so far as to say that I was too busy with my own life to help out when she needed me the most. I was livid, but I refused to respond. Instead, I took a deep breath and blocked her number for the time being. The whole situation had taken a toll on me. I felt like I couldn't win. My family was on her side, constantly telling me I should just give in and help her, while I was struggling to protect my own peace. I knew I had to distance myself from Sarah, and honestly, from my family too. I needed time to think, time to figure out what was best for me. So I stayed at my friend's house for a while. It wasn't like I didn't love my family, but it was clear to me that I needed to be around people who actually respected my boundaries. I needed a space where I could relax, breathe, and not be bombarded by guilt trips and negativity. James and Emily, the friends I mentioned earlier, were so understanding. They didn't ask me for anything except to just be myself. They made it clear that they cared about me and would support me no matter what. Being around them, I realized something important. Their dynamic was so different from the one I had with my family. They argued sometimes, of course, but they always talked things through and came to an understanding. There was no shouting, no drama, no guilt trips. Their home was peaceful, and I found myself feeling safe there. They showed me what a healthy relationship looked like. They didn't rely on each other to fix everything, but they supported each other in ways that made sense. It made me reflect on my own family situation. Growing up, things were always tense in my household. My parents were constantly arguing, and my siblings, Sarah included, weren't always the kindest to each other. There was always this need to blame someone for everything. If something went wrong, there had to be a scapegoat. If it wasn't me, it was someone else. And whenever someone was blamed, they were ostracized for a while until the storm passed. It was unhealthy, and it had worn me down over the years. I had learned to just go along with it, to just forgive and forget, because that's what was expected of me. But now, being with my friends, I saw a different way of living. One where I could have my own boundaries and not feel guilty for having them. But that didn't change the fact that my family was still calling me. My parents and my brother were both texting me nonstop. Some of the texts were apologetic, some were still blaming me. My mom kept telling me how hard Sarah had it, and my dad kept saying I should just help her out for the family. I felt like a punching bag. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. One evening, I finally picked up the phone. It was my dad. He wanted to talk. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I agreed. We talked for a while, and he told me how much my mom and Sarah were hurting, how they didn't understand why I couldn't just babysit Tommy once in a while. He even said that it was my duty as the youngest sibling to help out. I listened, and I understood where he was coming from. He was coming from a place of love, but I couldn't help feeling like he was completely missing the point. I tried to explain to him that I wasn't refusing to help because I hated Tommy, but because his behavior wasn't being addressed, and that wasn't something I could fix. I told him that I loved my family, but I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being to make everyone else happy. He didn't really get it, but he listened. It wasn't the most productive conversation, but it was something. I told him that I was going to take some time for myself to really think about everything. I needed to step away for a bit. He didn't like it, but he understood. I hung up the phone and felt a wave of relief. For once, I was doing what was best for me, even if it didn't make everyone else happy. Days turned into weeks, and I kept my distance. My family would call and text, but I only responded when I felt it was necessary. I had my boundaries, and I wasn't going to let anyone push me past them. Meanwhile, Sarah's situation continued to get worse. She wasn't getting Tommy the help he needed, and the meltdowns became more frequent. My parents tried to step in, but Sarah pushed them away. She kept saying that they didn't understand her struggles, that they weren't doing enough for her. And as much as I hated it, I knew Sarah had to hit rock bottom before she would ever ask for help. And until that happened, there was nothing I could do. Weeks went by and I kept my distance. As much as I hated the tension between me and my family, I couldn't bring myself to return to the same patterns I had lived with for years. The guilt trips, the emotional manipulation, and the constant feeling of being the bad guy in every situation, it was suffocating. I had to prioritize my mental health, even if that meant disappointing my family. It wasn't easy. I've always been the one to put others before myself, especially in my family. But this time, I knew I had to stand my ground. I had given so much of myself to my sister and my family over the years, always trying to make them happy, always trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister. And for what? To be blamed for everything that went wrong. Sarah's situation wasn't getting better. Tommy's behavior was escalating, and it seemed like Sarah was only digging in her heels even more. She refused to acknowledge that her son had any issues beyond being a normal kid who just threw tantrums. The more I heard about what was going on, the more I realized that Tommy was slipping through the cracks. He needed help. Real help, not just empty words from a mom too scared or too proud to admit her child needed something more than what she could give. I stayed in touch with James and Emily, and their support was invaluable. They didn't push me to talk about anything I wasn't ready to. They just let me vent when I needed to, and that meant the world to me. It felt so good to be around people who understood what it meant to respect boundaries, to support someone without making them feel like they had to prove themselves. Being in their home was like a breath of fresh air. One night, when things were particularly tense at home, I found myself sitting on the couch at James and Emily's house, holding their baby boy. He was curled up in my lap, his little hand resting on my leg as he drifted off to sleep. I couldn't help but think about Tommy and how much I wished he could experience moments of peace like this. How I wished Sarah could see that her son wasn't just acting out or being dramatic. That there was something deeper happening, something that needed attention. It was heartbreaking, really. I knew I couldn't change things for Tommy unless his mom was willing to acknowledge the problem, and as long as she kept denying it, nothing would ever get better. Then, one evening, I got a call from my mom. It was the first time she had called me in over a week, and I could tell something was different. I braced myself for whatever it was. But when I answered, I was surprised by what she said. "I just wanted to check in on you," she said, her voice soft. "We've been worried about you," I sighed. "I'm fine, Mom. Really, I'm just taking some space." "I know, but we've been talking about it, about Sarah and Tommy." I could hear the hesitation in her voice. She wasn't sure how to say what was coming, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. "What about them?" "Well, Sarah's not doing well," my mom continued. She's been lashing out at everyone, and Tommy's behavior is getting worse. We don't know what to do anymore." I closed my eyes and ran a hand through my hair. "I told you this would happen, Mom. I tried to tell you, but Sarah won't listen to anyone. She refuses to get help for Tommy, and until she does, nothing's going to change." "I know," my mom whispered, "but we need your help. We need you to come back and help us talk to her. She's not listening to anyone. You're the only one who might be able to get through to her." I stayed silent for a moment, trying to process what she was asking. I knew my mom was coming from a place of love. She was just trying to hold the family together, trying to find a solution. But I also knew that my involvement in the situation wasn't going to fix anything. It was only going to drag me back into the same unhealthy dynamic that I had been trying to escape. "I can't, Mom," I finally said. "I've tried to help. I've tried talking to Sarah, but she's not ready to hear it. I can't be the one to fix this. I'm sorry." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell my mom was hurt, but she didn't push me. She just sighed and said, "I understand. Just know that we're all worried about you and about Sarah. We love you, and we want to help you through this." "I love you too, Mom, but I need to take care of myself right now. I'll always be here for you, but I can't carry this weight anymore. It's too much." After we hung up, I sat there for a while just thinking. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Maybe I should be doing more. Maybe I should be the one to step in and talk to Sarah again. But the truth was, I knew I had done everything I could. I had tried to help her. I had tried to help Tommy, but at the end of the day, I couldn't fix it. I realized with a heavy heart that sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes, no matter how much you care about someone, you can't save them from themselves. And I couldn't save Sarah from her own denial. I couldn't save Tommy from the consequences of not getting help. All I could do was take care of myself and hope that one day, when Sarah was ready, she would seek the help they all desperately needed. And then, just as things seemed to calm down, I got a call from my dad. He had a very different tone from my mom's. He was angry. "You need to come home," he said. "Sarah's been crying all day, and she's saying you've abandoned her. We need you here now. This family can't take any more of your selfishness." The words hit me like a slap in the face. My dad, always the one to stay neutral in family issues, was now on Sarah's side. It was clear that they had all turned against me. I felt a sting of betrayal, but I didn't react right away. I couldn't. "I'm not coming home, Dad," I said, my voice shaking. "I've already explained myself. You all need to understand that I can't keep doing this. I'm not your scapegoat. I'm not here to fix Sarah's problems." "You need to stop being so stubborn," he shot back. "You've always been so self-centered. Well, now look at the mess you've caused. If you don't come back and help, this family will fall apart." The words stung, but I knew deep down that what he was saying wasn't true. I wasn't the cause of the mess. Sarah's refusal to get help, her refusal to face reality, those were the things tearing our family apart. I had tried to be the peacekeeper, but I couldn't keep doing it at the expense of my own happiness. "I can't, Dad. I've made my decision. I'm not going to be manipulated into thinking I'm the problem here. I love you all, but I can't carry this weight anymore." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, he sighed. "I don't know what to say to you, but fine. If you won't help, then I don't know what else to do." And with that, he hung up. After that conversation with my dad, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It wasn't just the anger or frustration from the conversation, it was the sense of being completely misunderstood. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was being painted as the villain in my own story, the one who was selfish, the one who was abandoning her family when they needed her most. It was tough, especially because I knew deep down I wasn't the one who was in the wrong. But here I was, being blamed for everything. I sat in my friend's living room, staring blankly at the TV, not even registering what was on. My mind kept replaying my dad's words, the guilt that was creeping in, and the tension in my chest that wouldn't go away. I thought about Tommy. I thought about Sarah. I thought about my parents, and how all of them had just given up on me. I felt like I was trapped between two worlds, the world I had made for myself, with boundaries and peace, and the world my family wanted me to be part of, where I was supposed to sacrifice everything for them. I could feel myself starting to spiral. I wanted to help. I really did. I wanted to be there for my nephew, but I couldn't keep letting my sister drag me back into her mess. I couldn't be the one to fix it anymore. And as much as it hurt, I knew I had to accept that. I had to accept that sometimes you can't save everyone. As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, Emily came into the living room, her baby in her arms. She smiled at me, that gentle, understanding smile she always gave when she knew I was going through something. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat there, rubbing my temples, trying to get the weight of the day off my mind. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked softly, sitting down next to me. "You've been really quiet today." I turned to her, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I don't know what to do, Emily. My family is falling apart, and it's like they're trying to pull me into it, but I don't know if I can keep doing this. I've tried so hard to help, but they keep blaming me. It's like I'm the only one who can't see how they're all in the wrong, and I'm just done. She listened, her expression softening as I spoke. She didn't interrupt. She just let me vent, let me get all the frustration out, and for that, I was grateful. "I know you want to help, and I know you love your family," Emily said gently, "but you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself too. Your happiness matters, and you can't keep sacrificing it for people who won't help themselves." I wiped my eyes, trying to hold back the tears. But I feel like I should be doing more. I feel like I'm abandoning them. Like if I don't do something, it's all going to fall apart. Emily shook her head. "It's already falling apart because they're all relying on you to be the fix. You've tried, but you can't be the solution to everything. You've done what you can. The rest is up to them." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so caught up in trying to be the good daughter, the good sister, that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I had been carrying their burdens for so long that I had lost sight of my own needs. Emily was right. I couldn't fix everything. I had to let go. "Thank you," I whispered, feeling a weight lifting off my shoulders. I needed to hear that. She smiled, giving my shoulder a comforting squeeze. "Anytime. You're not alone in this." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of relief. It wasn't going to be easy to walk away from my family's drama, but I knew it was the right choice. I had to let go of the guilt. I had to stop trying to fix things that weren't mine to fix. As the days passed, I stayed at my friend's house, still processing everything. I was still receiving texts from my family, but I was learning to ignore them. It was hard at first, but each time I resisted the urge to respond, I felt a little stronger. I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were, and I was starting to accept that. But then one day, I got a call from my mom. I had been expecting this, but when I saw her name on my phone, my stomach twisted. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello?" I said, my voice cautious. "Hey, honey." My mom's voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I just wanted to check in on you. I've been thinking about you a lot lately." I sighed. "I'm fine, Mom." "Really? I've just been focusing on myself for a while." "I know," she said, "and I think that's good. I think you're doing what you need to do. But I wanted to apologize. I know I've been really hard on you, and I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you were going through. I didn't realize how much this was affecting you." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry, but I also realized that my mom was just doing what she thought was best. She was scared. She didn't know how to fix Sarah or Tommy, and she was trying to hold on to whatever she could. "I appreciate the apology, Mom," I said quietly, "but I need you to understand that I can't keep doing this. I've tried, but it's not helping anyone. I can't keep putting myself last." "I understand," she said, her voice cracking a little. "I just want you to know that we love you and we're sorry for everything." "I love you too, Mom," I said softly. "But I need to take care of myself right now." We talked for a little while longer, but it felt different. There was no guilt, no pressure. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. My mom and I didn't agree on everything, but we had reached a place of understanding. And that was enough for me. In the days that followed, I kept moving forward. I didn't reach out to Sarah. I didn't respond to my family's messages. I focused on myself, on healing, and on building the life I wanted for myself. Tommy was still with my parents, and I didn't know what would happen next. Sarah had disappeared. My family had no idea where she had gone, and to be honest, I didn't care. I had done everything I could, and now it was out of my hands. One afternoon, as I sat outside on the porch of my friend's house, watching the sunset with Emily, I realized something important. Life wasn't about fixing everyone else's problems. It wasn't about being the one to save the day. It was about finding peace within myself, about setting boundaries, and about knowing when to walk away. I couldn't change my family, but I could change how I reacted to them. And that was enough for me. As the weeks continued to roll by, I made peace with my decisions. I didn't know what the future would hold for my family, whether Sarah would ever get the help she so desperately needed for Tommy, or if things would continue to spiral out of control. But I knew one thing. I had made the right choice for myself. The weight of my family's expectations, the constant guilt trips, and the never-ending responsibility, they were no longer mine to bear. I began to embrace my life more fully. I started spending more time with my friends, focusing on my work and doing things that made me happy. It wasn't easy at first, as there were moments when I missed my family, when I felt the pang of guilt for not being there for them. But with each passing day, those feelings started to fade. I realized that I couldn't pour from an empty cup, and I had spent far too many years trying to make everyone else happy while neglecting my own well-being. James and Emily continued to be my rock throughout this process. They never once judged me for needing space, and they always made me feel like I was enough just as I was. Their home became a sanctuary for me, a place where I could breathe and be myself without the pressure of trying to fix the unfixable. Their support gave me the strength I needed to keep moving forward. I took some time off work to focus on my mental health, which I hadn't realized had taken such a toll over the years. I enrolled in a few yoga classes, spent weekends hiking in the mountains, and even took up painting, something I had always wanted to try but never made time for. It was liberating to finally be able to invest in myself without guilt or shame. I kept in touch with my parents, but I remained firm in my boundaries. We talked more openly about our feelings, and while there were still moments of tension, there was a newfound respect between us. They started to understand that my decision to step back from the family drama wasn't about abandoning them. It was about protecting my own peace. They apologized for pushing me so hard and for not respecting my limits. I accepted their apologies, but I also made it clear that I couldn't return to the way things were before. Months passed, and slowly I began to hear updates about Sarah. She was still struggling, but she had started to attend therapy, finally acknowledging the need for help. It was a slow process, and there were setbacks, but I couldn't help but feel a small glimmer of hope. I didn't know if she would ever be the kind of mother Tommy needed, but at least she was starting to take responsibility for her actions. As for Tommy, he was in therapy as well. My parents had stepped in to care for him, and while it wasn't easy for them, they were doing their best. I was relieved that he was getting the help he needed, but I also knew that the road ahead would be long. It wasn't up to me to fix him. It was up to Sarah, and I could only hope that she would keep moving in the right direction. One evening, as I was sitting in the park, enjoying the warm breeze and the fading light of the sunset, I received a text message from Sarah. It had been a while since we last spoke, and I wasn't sure how I would feel about hearing from her again. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry," her message read. "I know I've been hard on you. I've been working on myself, and I want to do better for Tommy. I'm sorry for everything." For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My emotions were a mix of relief, anger, and sadness. I had wanted this for so long, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure what to do with it. I knew I wasn't ready to rush back into a relationship with her, but I also knew that this was a step forward. I took a deep breath and typed back, "I'm glad to hear you're getting help. I really hope you keep going for Tommy's sake. I'm still here for you, but I need to keep my distance for now. I need to take care of myself." The message sent, and I sat back, letting the weight of the situation settle in. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was progress. And sometimes, progress is all we can ask for. Over the next few months, Sarah continued her therapy, and things between us slowly started to improve. We began communicating more openly, though it was still a bit strained. But the most important thing was that she was trying. And for the first time in a long time, I could see the smallest glimmer of the sister I had once known, the sister who was kind, thoughtful, and caring. She wasn't there yet, but she was on the road to getting better. As for Tommy, he continued his therapy, and he was making progress. The meltdowns became less frequent, and he started learning how to manage his emotions better. My parents were still very involved, but they had started to take a step back, knowing that it was Sarah's responsibility to be the one to raise him and help him heal. I stayed in touch with them, offering support when I could, but I remained firm in my decision to keep my distance from the constant drama. And as for me, I finally felt like I was living my own life. The guilt that once weighed me down had been replaced with a sense of freedom. I wasn't responsible for fixing everyone else anymore. I wasn't responsible for saving my family from themselves. I could live my life, pursue my dreams, and take care of myself without feeling like I was letting anyone down. I started dating again, something I hadn't done in a while. I met someone who understood my boundaries and respected my independence. We took things slow, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was with someone who truly saw me for who I was, someone who respected my need for space, my love for freedom, and my commitment to being true to myself. As the months turned into a year, things with my family began to settle down. Sarah was still on her journey, but I could see the changes in her. She was no longer blaming others for her problems. She was taking responsibility, and that, more than anything, was a sign that things were starting to turn around. I realized that sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let go. Letting go of the expectations, the guilt, and the idea that you have to fix everything. Letting go of people who aren't ready to help themselves. And while that may seem harsh, it's the only way to move forward. And so, with time, I found peace. I found peace in knowing that I had done everything I could and that the rest wasn't mine to control. I had let go, and in doing so, I had found the freedom I had been searching for all along.